Welcome back to the 757 Spy Flight over here on YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Dave. I do the Spy Flights over on Twitch. Every now and then I come over here to YouTube and do a cold and dark flight, especially when there's something new out. We've got some cool new things. First of all, the Phoenix A320, the airplane you saw, that airplane just keeps getting better and better, but WinWing has now put out some really cool things, including an affordable McDu that works really, really, really well. So today we're going to do a complete and cold and dark flight, taking the Phoenix A319 using the WinWing Flight Guidance Control Panel, EFIS panels for the autopilot, and also the new McDu. We're going to be taking that from Bozeman, where it just started snowing. Fact is, winter storm warnings are starting to come up for the inland Pacific Northwest, so we should have some stormy weather. Definitely need the anti-ice going out, and we're going just down to Denver, Colorado. So let's go ahead and hop back into the cockpit here, and we're in walk-around mode. Walk-around mode has been one of those things that people are kind of having a little bit of trouble with trying to figure out in Flight Sim 2024. Yep, we're in 2024, so if we can see through the clouds, the scenery should be really, really good out there too. But walk around is really kind of simple. This is the mode that you basically end up in when you first start in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And as we kind of start walking forward using the W button, at least that's the way on my keyboard, you can do a full walk around. Especially some airplanes are so detailed that you can actually do the full pilot's walk around. You can kind of go and check the tires. You can check all the things that the pilots are going to be checking. There's our IAE engines. They've even modeled the static ports that you're supposed to look at and check too. Once you're done with your walk around and checking that, the way to get out of walk around mode and into standard cockpit mode that we're all used to is Shift C. And there we are. This is our standard cockpit mode, and this is our really, really cool Phoenix A319. It's really become one of my favorite airplanes here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've had a blast with this, learning all things Airbus too. So one of the things that I usually do when I start is I'm going to move my Flight Simulator controls. I'm just going to make sure that all of my controls are connected. Gear lever is down, parking brake handle is engaged. I'm also going to push the rudder pedals, make sure they work. Look over here, we're going to go and move the side stick and the nose wheel tiller and go ahead and get those things done. So we've got those things taken care of. We can come over here and let's go ahead and open the door. And our airplane is still closed, so for a little bit of immersion, let's come on down here to the Phoenix tab. Now, over on the Spy Flight on Twitch, JSG Droid came up with a little thing that I've been doing pretty regularly. Before you start a flight in the Phoenix right now, because this thing's still a little, they're still working on full compatibility with Flight Sim 2024, hit the panel state button and hit cold and dark and activate it. That's just going to make sure that everything has been turned off, okay, in the cockpit, because sometimes, especially at night, some of the light switches magically pop on, and that's just a great way to go and make sure the airplane is all ready to go. Last little bit of immersion, go back to Phoenix, hit the ground services tab, and go ahead and toggle your jetway. And if we come on out and look outside the airplane in standard, look around the plane mode, that's going to go ahead and it's going to open up the door and put the jetway in the airplane. And we can even do a little bit of a walk around here and come on back here and see our doors open. There's the jetway, and go back into the cabin. And let's just have a little bit of a seat right here. So we'll just take one of these seats because we're going to do a full flight plan. This is the way that I do the flight plans for all of the flights over on the Spy Flight on Twitch. And the first place that I go is a nice little web page here, and this is SimBrief. Really, really do like SimBrief. The other thing that I've got is I've got my notepad, and I call this the flight strip. And look down in the description below. You're going to see the completed one that we're going to slowly put together here. I'll put some of the data in a little bit later in for our departure and arrival, but this is how it is that I keep notes while I'm flying along. So the first step is we're going to create a new flight plan. So let's go ahead and hit create. We are going to be a United flight today, flight 441. We are at KBZN, Bozeman. We're going to KDEN, Denver, Colorado. We're going to be taking the A319 And we're going to choose the variant, and this is going to be my United Airlines in the old classic tulip livery, and just come on down here. Now, SimBrief has gone over here and given us a couple of runways, runway 12 and runway 16 left. Sometimes those runways are absolutely spot on. Sometimes they're a little bit messed up. So what I like to do is go over to a real world tracker, and I'm going to go and let's just KBZN. Let's see what's happening at the real world Bozeman right now. See if there's any planes going on. Aha, look at that. Somebody just took off. And my guess is they're over here, and they just took off. They're going probably to someplace. Yeah, they're going to Seattle. So let's see. That looks really good. Let's take a look at the wind here and see what we have at Bozeman. Right now, if you go to the bottom, you can see in the real world, it's 070 at 4 knots. The next thing that we could do is come on over here and let's go to the search tab in Navigraph, KBZN, and just have a look and see. Warning, we're going down some pretty big rabbit holes today. So this is all the flight planning, but if you take a little bit of extra time to do this kind of flight planning, it really does help you figure out what's going on. So it looks like runway 12. Okay, well, if we go over here and take a look at the flight that just departed, that actually kind of makes sense. Runway 12 with the turnout like that, I think that's pretty good. So we'll call runway 12 a good runway. Now we'll look at KDEN. Let's see what's happening at the real world in Denver, because we've got the real world weather cranked in here, so we should go and see what's happening here. And it looks like good old Denver is landing to the south. So my guess is runway 16 left is probably good. And if you're unfamiliar, just go over here to the search tab again, KDEN. There is Denver Airport. After you find Denver, go into the charts tab and look at the ground chart and just have a look and see. Yeah, 16 left, 16 right. That looks absolutely perfect. Again, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole. One of the reasons to do that, though, is let's say you're doing a flight plan for a big VATSIM event or something like that. Because VATSIM almost always is going to use real world weather and real world runways and stuff like that. If you take just an extra second to verify that those are the best runways, this is going to give you the best SIDs and stars to come on in, and that way your flight plan is going to probably get approved a whole lot faster, and you'll get on the way. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, this is going to be a short taxi out, probably only about 10 minutes. And usually there's this fuel planning tab here. I'll open it out, and for ATC fuel, I'll switch to minutes. And depending upon the VATSIM event, I'm going to go and add a little bit of time. In this case, let's just go 15 minutes just because. If it's a VATSIM event that's normal, I'll add 15 minutes. If it's cross the pond, I'll add almost an hour of extra ATC fuel, because it's going to be, one of those days, right? Okay, so we got all of this set. Let's go ahead. This is all we need. Let's generate the flight. The departure and arrival looks like it's going to be pretty good. So this should be a fairly nice flight. And there we go. There is our flight. Now I'm going to go and hit view the PDF here, and we're done with the real world tracker, so we're going to get rid of that. Another thing I've noticed lately with the flight simulators and stuff like that is the fewer tabs you have open in browsers and stuff, the better your life generally is. Okay, now what I'm going to do here, here's our flight plan packet. I'm going to save this to my desktop, and I'm going to save this to the YouTube flight plan. So, because I've already got a flight plan for today's flights on Twitch. And then we'll come over here, grab the YouTube flight plan in PDF form. Where is the YouTube flight plan? There it is. And here it is. This is my YouTube flight plan. And at this point, I think we're done. So I'm going to cancel out of that. I'll just leave SimBrief up in case we have some changes. But here we go. This is going to give us our fuel. This is going to be a 455-mile flight. Takeoff weight is well below takeoff weight. So I think we're all pretty good. I think, yep, we're great. Good to go here. That's fuel planning. There is our route. And we are going to have 104 passengers all set and ready to go. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to take my route, and I'm going to copy this over into my flight notes. So let's just pop that in there right now. Let's also go to page 1, and let's take a look at page 1, and it says flight level 390, 39,000 feet. I'm going to pop that in there too, 390. And again, all of this data I'll plug in a little bit later on for you. That's just for my own information. In fact, all of this information that you see that I just highlighted, it's actually stuff that I'm not using that much anymore. So there is our flight plan, and that looks really good. We have 104 passengers, there's a little cargo, and our block time is 1 hour and 45 minutes. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a whole hour and 45 minutes. We'll cut the middle of the flight out so that you don't have to sit there for cruise. And now that that looks good, let's go ahead and get Navigraph again. And over here, we're going to go to flights now, and I'm going to import the flight from SimBrief. Again, these are just ways to make things a little bit easier for you, because things is about flight sim and flying on VATSIM, it's getting more complicated like the real world. So these are hopefully a few time savers that should work for you. Let's go to the airports, and Bozeman, Yellowstone Airport. We need a taxi chart. Do we have gates? Nope, just at the airport park. And there we are. There's our airport. There's runway 12. We're at gate Alpha 3 over here. The real flight took off from Bravo 3. And we're going to need the Bobcat departure. Bob KT is Montana State University Bobcats. So there you go. And we're going to, after departure, it looks like we're going to go to Japer, and we're going out over Boise. Oh, no, it's not. It's the Bozeman Reservoir VOR. I thought that was Boise. So that's going to be our departure over there. Initial climb clearance. This is something that VATSIM is starting to do a lot more. If they say that you are your climb clearance, your clearance to depart, and they say climb via the SID but don't give you an altitude, that means that there is an altitude over here on the departure chart. And you probably ought to check that because they're expecting you to look at your charts. So 16,000 feet is our initial climb clearance. You can have Navigraph go and auto-populate your charts. I generally like to do it myself because it forces me to look at the charts, and that way I'm kind of familiar with the flight plan. We are coming in on the Flatiron for arrival. Good old Flatiron. This is the standard arrival from up north. We're coming in via TOFUU. And we're going to be doing the Tichenor transition going into Denver. Denver is one of my go-to airports. I've been sim flying in and out of this airport for a very long time. We're expecting the ILS runway 16 left. That looks fairly normal. So I'm tabbing all of these things at the bottom. Taxi chart, we need that. We need parking gates. So all of this is set up. And you can see all along the bottom here, all of my charts are now set up. Back in the old days when they used paper charts, the pilots would stack their charts up, one on top of the other or one below the other in the order that they need it, called the stack of charts. Well, now we've got the little tabs of charts, and we have them in the order that we need it. Again, this is stuff that makes your day a little bit easier. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the little triangle, and let's zoom on in, and this is also going to be my ground chart. This is one of the cool things that Navigraph is doing right now. Is you zoom on in like this, holy moly, they've got the ground chart all nicely set up. I'm going to follow ownership, which is basically follow my airplane, and now I've got a ground tracking chart. And we're all set and ready to go. So now our flight planning's done. So the pilots here have basically walked down the jetway. There's our door. We can kind of come in, and let's go ahead and go up just a little bit so it's normal. We'll stop off the galley. Let's get ourselves our cup of coffee to head on up to the flight deck. So we got our cup of coffee all set and ready to go. I mean, this is how detailed Phoenix has made these airplanes. It is really, really cool. Come on in. And here is our airport, all cold and dark and ready for us to come in and do pilot things. If you're having a problem with frame rates and stuff, one of the things that you might do is look over here. And if you're flying in the left seat, go click the microphone, and that's going to turn off the EFB for the co-pilot side. It's going to save you maybe a frame rate or two. But again, if you're having a problem, every little bit helps. Now we're in the pilot seat, and it's time to do airplane things. So over here, we've got ground power, chocks, and our main door is open. Let's come on over to My Flights, and we're going to tap this to import our flight plan from SimBrief. Bozeman to Denver, and it says minus 24 minutes. That means for an on-time departure, we've got 24 minutes to go to be on time. Doesn't matter in the world of flight sim, but if you're doing a VATSIM event with a departure time, holy moly, does that become important. Okay, now we're done with that. It's time to start flipping a few buttons here. We've already checked to see that all of our controls are working, so that's good. There is the McDu. We're going to look at the McDu soon. And the things that I also have from WinWing is this center console here. So everything that I'm going to be using, what you'll see, is the left EFIS, flight guidance, the autopilot, and also over here we've got the right EFIS. So all of those are set up. Let's go ahead and turn power on the airplane. So battery number 1, battery number 2, and ground power. There goes ground power. And if we look down here, you can see some lights have started to turn on. We're starting to see the monitors pop up here. There is activity down here in the McDu. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on something. There is my new McDu that I got. This is the WinWing. Holy moly, is this thing awesome. I have taken this into a Frankfurt Friday now and several other big VATSIM events. And this, along with the autopilot and stuff, have really made my day a lot easier. So if you're looking for some new toys to buy for your sim cockpit, and I'm not sponsored by any of these people, I am just, genuinely geeky and really excited about how cool these things are. So the autopilot is now coming up. Now I've only got one desk camera like this, so we'll put the camera on the autopilot a little bit later on. Okay, that's coming up. Let's see. This is a U.S. domestic flight. We're going to open up the flap here and get the APU running. So give it a second and the APU should start. Next thing that I usually do is nav and logo lights. There's 2 systems on the Airbus. Today is the 2nd of February, so one scheme for using this is to turn nav and logo light system number 2 for even days. Odd days is 1. Other pilots will do, if the captain's flying, it's logo light system 1. If the co-pilot's flying, logo light system 2. Various ways to do that. Over here, we're going to turn the no smoking light to auto, and we're going to arm the emergency exit lights, and overhead integrated lighting I'm going to turn up about halfway or so. It just makes it easier to read the labels up here. While we're doing that, let's come down here, and there is the integrated lighting for the pedestal and the main panel. I'm going to turn that up about halfway, and I'm going to turn floodlight up 1 click. And that floodlight is basically the lights here on the panel here. And then the last thing, 2 more things. We're going to turn the primary flight display, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the ND. Just turn those down a little bit. And then there's another 2 over here. I'm going to turn the ECAM upper, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Just turn that down because as the day changes, the light changes, the numbers and everything on the displays start to blaze a little bit, and it just becomes a little bit too much. Okay, this is looking good. APU is available. The bleed comes on. Turn the temperature in the back down just a click or 2. That's because there's more people in the back. And then the other thing I'll do is come over here, and I have cargo heaters, and I'm going to just put it in the middle, right in the middle section. Okay, next thing to do is let's go over here and start doing flight management guidance. And I realize my camera might have been blocking a few things. Sorry about that. If they were blocking like these things over here, that's the primary flight display. I was turning those down, and my camera is now blocking. There's the navigation display. So I just turned those down a little bit to see. Now let's go ahead and start doing some flight guidance. Normally an ATSU, Air Traffic Services Unit. And the first step is that I usually do this on the co-pilot side. Come over to the co-pilot side and we'll click these, ATSU and AOC, Air Operations Control, and Flight Init and Data Request. And so these are going to come on in here. And so I'll just use this one as a normal point and click kind of a thing. And there's our data. United 441, Bozeman to Denver, and there we go. Now I'm going to go to received messages, and sometimes, almost always, there's a load sheet ready to go. We'll leave that there. Now let's go ahead and start using this one. We're going to do flight management, FMGC, flight management guidance computer, I think. I'm going to check my navigation data, And for this, because it's kind of hard to see on my second camera here, I'm going to zoom this in really tight so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to check the navigation data. It's current. And now we're going to go to init. And here is our init. And there's two ways to do this. You can plug in the data manually, or you can go and hit init request, and it's going to go over to SimBrief and get your flight plan. And there it is. Bozeman to Denver with our alternate is Colorado Springs, and we're all set and ready to go. I'll put in my flight number, United Airlines, flight 441, and put that in there. And then the next thing that I usually do is look up at my upper panel, all the way up at the top, and do the ADIRs. So, wow, there we go. I got to remember how these zoom work. And I used to do this very slowly. A real-world Airbus pilot came into the live stream on Twitch and said, nope, we just hit nav, nav, nav. 1, 2, 3. That's all we do. We could also do the fire check. Let's go ahead and do an engine fire check. And the way you do this to make it look really cool is you might have noticed that I've got some quick views. And if you want to see that, the video, I've got a video here on YouTube about how my quick views work. So I can go and I can look up and down and right and left pretty quick. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put my mouse click pointer over engine 1 test, and I'm going to hold it down. And now I'm going to go and look down at the main panel, and you can see I've got the master warning light flashing. Let's look down at the ECAM, and there is my checklist of things to do. And look down here, and you can see I've got the fire light under engine 1. Now I'm going to release the mouse pointer, and it stops. And that's how you could do the fire check if you do that. And again, look at the quick views to see how it is that I went and set all that stuff up. It's pretty simple. I basically run all of this like you used to do quick views over on X-Plane. Okay, flight plan. Over here, page 1, is going to be our cost index, which says 5. Now, I've got my PDF as a backup here, but I'm going to go and put it on the other screen and minimize it. I'm not going to look at the flight plan anymore. I'm going to come over here to the electronic flight bag, and I'm going to hit the pilot brief button. Haha, there's the flight plan. Pretty cool, huh? So there's my cost index. It's 5. So let's go ahead and we're going to put 5 in for our cost index. And mine's still a little new, so the buttons need a little help pushing there. And our final cruise altitude is flight level 390, and that goes in there. And it says AOC. Again, that's Airline Operations Control, Active Flight Plan Uplink. And I'm going to clear that, and now I'm going to go to the wind tab. And I'm going to request the winds for the flight. And that just takes a second here. Ding. Oh, there it is. So I'm just going to clear this, and from what I'm told, all you do is bring it in. If it's blue, it's loaded in. You don't have to do anything else. So I'm going to return out of that, and now it's time to do page B of the flight plan. So let's go ahead, and that's going to be that on the far left side, the right arrow, push that, and we're going to do page B. And if we look over here, you can see that I've already got the load sheet, and our zero fuel weight is 51.790, which, by the way, it says over here in the flight plan too, if you want to check that. So 51.7 is the initial number. So 51.7, and then do the little slash. Come over here, we need our center of gravity. So go up a page. There's page 2, and our center of gravity is going to be 27.8. So let's go ahead and along the same line with the zero fuel weight, 27.8. And then we're going to put that over in zero fuel weight. And that's good. Now we'll come over here and let's go ahead and accept this. There's a lot more information here. This is just kind of a speeded up process. But now what we need to do is go in and put taxi fuel and everything else. And we're going to get this over here in our fuel planning. So my taxi fuel is 100. So that's 0.100. So it's going to basically be 0.1, and we'll put that over in taxi fuel. The next line that I'm going to get is going to be contingency, 15 minutes, and that's 601, so 0.601. 0.601, and that goes in the reserves. The next line is alternate. Our alternate airport is Colorado Springs. We're going to go and hit 0.924. 0.924 is alternate. There we go. And finally is our 30 minutes, final reserve, 30 minutes of fuel is 0.955. 0.955. And that is now complete. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to hit the fuel planning button. And if it turns green, our fuel planning should be good. It's turned green. So that's good. Now we can come over here, and we're going to go over here to the Phoenix page, and we're going to go to mass and balance. We've got 104 passengers to board, so let's load the airplane. And I'm going to do the fast loading time. At real time is 19 minutes. I'm doing the fast load so that we can fly together. But if you... Oh! You hear my door is open. Now that we're boarding passengers, we've got some flight announcements and stuff. There's a member of the Spy Flight who flies with us all the time named Noodles over on Twitch. If you would like some of the cool announcements and stuff, come on over there and I'll tell you how to get them from Noodles. Noodles put together a really complete package of announcements, and also the really cool background here for the iPad is really nice too. With all of that, this looks really good. Let's go over here and we're going to go to pilot brief and routing. Let's go put the flight plan in. So Alpha Bozeman, it's runway 12 and the Bobcat 5 departure. So let's go and do flight plan and Bozeman, our runway for departure. And then we're going to go and do runway 12. So runway 12 and the Bobcat 5 departure. And we are exiting over, we have two choices on transitions, Billings or Boy. Let's take Boy, which is not Boise, and insert. And we'll just sort of let it sit there as we remind ourselves that coming in, we're going to do the Flatiron 4 arrival via TOFUU to runway 16 left. So again, we can come over here and let's go. Am I cutting this off? Yeah, you can see that over there. Good. So let's now do Denver and arrival, and we're expecting runway 16 left, and we're going to do the Flatiron 4, and we're coming in via TOFUU, and then here you need the approach via, and our approach via, I know this one is Tichenor, so we'll take Tichenor and insert. How did I know that that was Tichenor? So the way to check that is go over here and look at Flatiron 4, and at the end of the arrival, it said for our runways, it's Tichenor here. And another way to verify that is look at the arrival and see, it says Tichenor over here too. So that's how it is that I knew that. Okay, so all of that looks really good. And then the next thing to do is to go and hit flight plan, go to the top, and just go through, and we're going to look for any route discontinuities. Since this is going to take us all the way in to the ILS, there shouldn't be any route discontinuities at all. And this should take us right down to the runway at Denver. There it is. So now we're going to go and hit the init button again, and we're going to get a page B, and that's all nice and set and ready for our passengers to be loaded. Again, I don't know how it is that I did it so, for so long without having an actual McDu sitting here on the table, but holy moly, is it the nicest thing in the world. Let's go over to the Phoenix page, and now we're going to go to My Flights, and we're going to come over here. We got 10 minutes to departure, but over here is the weather. Let's hit refresh in Bozeman, and it shows the altimeter is 2966. So 2966 is altimeter 1. And I'll be showing you flight, all of this after takeoff, okay? Or before, actually. So 2966 over here. That looks good. And now we could also set our initial climb. And if you forgot it, like I always do, go over and look at the Bobcat departure and see it's 16,000 feet. My guess is real-world pilots don't rely on memory for some things, but a lot of stuff, let's just look it up and make sure. So 16,000 feet is our initial climb clearance. If we were on VATSIM, we would have a squawk code right now. Since we're not, I'm going to squawk 0007 because I do the spy flight, and so we'll do 0007 like that. Aircraft is now loaded. That looks pretty good. So back over to ground services. Let's go ahead and make sure that everything looks good. APU is on. APU bleed is on. I'm going to go and hit external power off. We're going to turn on the fuel pumps. And I'm going to turn on crew supply of oxygen. And with the passengers aboard, let's go close the door. Two more things. Let's go to the load sheet. This is the final load sheet. And you can see the final load sheet says 51.8. I said 51.7. So we're going to clear it on the pilot side and do 51.8 slash, let's come over to the co-pilot side, look at page 2. Center of gravity is 27.8. Our current center of gravity is 27.8. So I'm going to plug that in, and that is current. So 51.8, accept that and return. Now then, the last thing to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the performance button. And all of that is basically blank. Come over here. Ground power is disconnected. That's pretty good. Let's just go ahead and unplug the ground power. And we're going to go to the departure performance page. It's runway 12. Light snow is falling, but it's not wet yet, so we're going to leave it as dry, but we're going to sync the load sheet. There's snow in the area. I'm going to do anti-ice for the engines at least. I'm going to do sync the weather. I'm going to calculate it, and I'm going to send it to the McDu. That's how fast you can get this stuff set up. Let's go back a page, go to the Phoenix page, look down here. My parking brakes are on. I'm going to go ahead and pull my chocks and cones. And I'm going to use a cute little thing. It's free. It's called Pushback Helper. You can get it at flightsim.to. And this is going to go and get my tug. When you call the tug, that is going to close your door and retract your jetway. That's why I didn't close my own door and retract the jetway. And this page is now clear. Let's go to My Flights. We have 7 minutes we have 7 minutes or else we're late, and we don't want to be late. I've got the passengers are set. Everything is good, and now would be about the time that the pilot flying would call for the before start checklist and the before push start checklist. I'm going to start using my checklists a lot more. I'm going to go put constraints up, and that looks good. Let's come on down here, and if we were on VATSIM, we would need to be squawking mode Charlie. So I'm going to go to Tara, T-A-R-A, and I'm going to turn this switch to on. That way, if we're on VATSIM, we are squawking mode Charlie. And we're ready to go. Beacon is going on. Beacon is on. I'm going to do a cabin call. Let the flight attendants know we're going to start rolling the airplane around. And we'll go ahead and close the door. Even the sounds are pretty good. So here is our cute little cockpit here. What I'm going to do is we're going to take the flight management computer is really cool. I'm, again, totally geeky about this. But what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and shut off the desk cam for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and try and reposition my desk cam. And so, the desk cam, I'm going to set this up on the autopilot. Okay, and I need to rotate the camera a little bit, so hang on a sec. I'm just doing a few of these things, and that's 90 degrees. And let's turn it back on. Okay, so there we are over there. And now let's go ahead and focus it a little better. And that is my autopilot. And again, this has really just made my day so nice. So, whoops, let's go ahead and grab the autopilot. And there's desk cam. I'm going to move this down just a bit, and there we go. Now, it's a little bit bright for the camera, and you can actually adjust those levels on the airplane. So there's some dials underneath the autopilot. And so we're going to go ahead and just turn this down so it's not blazing so much for you. And we could also adjust the numbers in there. And that looks pretty good. So we'll do it that way. Okay, so we've got constraints on right now. We've got our altitude set. We're ready to go. Shall we go ahead and push back? Sounds like a plan. We're going to go and do parking brakes off. And if you go back to one of your wing views and hit reverse, it looks kind of cool. And we've got some really cool sounds. Like I said, if you'd like to get some sounds for your Phoenix airplanes, come on and visit us over at Twitch. They're free. I just don't have the link to share with you right now and can't promise that it's going to show up. It's also not mine. One of our spy pilots put it together named Noodles. So we're going to go ahead and be respectful there too. Now let's go ahead and do a little bit of a spin to the left. It's a little loud because of the APU noise. And that's probably pretty good. I'm going to straighten out the wheels and stop the push. Parking brakes on. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the tug button, and that's going to release the tug. Make sure the tug is gone before you get rid of this. And it takes a second. It is still a little loud. Okay, Mr. Tug, you can drive away now. Yep, it's gone. So there that goes. Back in the cockpit. Let's go ahead and start everything up. Ready? And let's go ahead, and we're going to starter to ignition start. And we're going to hit engine 1 start. New SOP came out. It's a couple of weeks old from our friends at the Real World of Airbus, and they would like you to start engine number 1 now on these Airbuses. And that was to eliminate a little bit of confusion on the ground. So engine 1 is your start. Altimeter here on the backup here is 2966, right? 2966? Yep, 2966. So we'll do that. Engine number 1 starting. The little gray box here shows that starting on up. You can also see the engine oil pressure is beginning to build. We're seeing a little bit of vibration, but not 2 vibrations. So these are good vibrations. And all of that's going up. And that looks really good. We've got some announcements in the cabin. And the startup sounds on this airplane are really quite nice too. A little loud outside, but you can see there's the engine going. And that looks good. Generally over on the spy flight, I kind of like flying the vintage liveries. That's kind of fun. It's a little bit different than what you're seeing in the real world. And some of the airlines are still doing some nice vintage liveries too. Engine number 1 has started. Starting engine number 2. Engine number 2 starts. One of the things I'm trying to do also is place things on my computer desks and stuff in as close to the actual positions as I can. Throttles, they're right where they're supposed to be. I'm using the Thrustmaster Airbus throttles and the WinWing's side stick. And again, super duper happy with those. Really blown away at the price and really kind of how good they are. Engine number 2 starts. There is an important number that we need to have ready. So pilot brief and summary and fuel. And it's this one right here. Minimum takeoff fuel 5032. Let's go ahead and write that down. 5032. We'll decimalize that and call it 5.032. Decimalize is my own goofy little word. But that is our minimum takeoff fuel. Let's see what we've got right now for fuel. I have 5.68. If it drops below 5.032, then we don't have enough fuel to legally do the flight. So minimum takeoff fuel is important. And we're getting a good start on engine number 2. There goes engine number 2. The clunk you heard, I think that's the generator switching over on the right side of the airplane to from the APU, and that's available. So we're going to go ahead and switch this back to normal mode. We're done with the APU bleed because the engines are taking over. Let's also turn off the APU. And let's go ahead and do our start checks over here on the control surfaces. But before I do that, you need to come down here, and we're going to hit pedal disconnect. So right now, we've disconnected the rudder pedals from the nose wheel steering. Okay, now let's go ahead and do this. So we'll zoom on in, and we're going to go and move the control surfaces. So grab your side stick, push it all the way forward, release, and it should come back to center. Pull it all the way back, release, make sure it goes back to center. All the way to the left with the ailerons, release. All the way to the right, release. And the rudder has been disconnected from the rudder pedals, so we can do the rudder all the way right, all the way left. Just what the real pilots are doing. And if you look down here, you can see that our flap setting and our trim setting is showing up here. So trim is going to be up 1.1, and that's a small little number here. And I'm going to use my trim control there. And there is 1.1. And if you look down here, the flaps are supposed to be 3. So flaps are now 3. Let's arm the speed brakes and set auto brakes to max in case we have to do a rejected takeoff. And all of that's looking good too. Another cabin call, let them know we're going to start rolling around. Let's go ahead and do taxi lights. Look over here, we're clear. Look over there, we're clear. And then down here, parking brakes are going to go off. Look out. Now, we're flying an Airbus A319 with IAE engines. Most of the time, the Airbus will automatically start to taxi. So let's see, because these engines idle a little bit faster than the CFM engines. So most of the time, the airplane will just start to take off on you. So don't let that alarm you. It's actually quite nice for doing just, a thrust idle taxi, especially if you're in a big VATSIM event and you're trying not to use a whole lot of fuel. And out we go, taxiway Alpha down to the runway. Nothing really to do with the autopilot at this point, but we did say that we were going to do engine anti-ice. The beep that you heard there is the cabin crew telling us that the cabin is secured. So let's go ahead and hit, let's see, the engine was on, takeoff config, and everything is good except for predictive wind shear. Predictive wind shear is going on. And now that ECAM, our checklist there is now clear, and we're ready to go. Looks like we're going to need a little bit of thrust to get us around the turns here. Come on, airplane, let's go. Are we rolling? Yeah, we're slowly rolling here. This has really become one of my favorite airplanes. It's got all the cool stuff that you'll get in any of the other Airbuses. But what's also really neat about this airplane is it also, it's just smaller and sportier. Kind of sporty is the word that I'm using. It's great for doing a, like Frankfurt Friday. This is the one I like to fly. We can get into almost any gate and just get through the flight, and it's really nice. Snow is definitely starting to come down here a little bit more, so I'm glad we decided on engine anti-ice for our departure. Over here, we'll take a look and remind ourselves that on the Bobcat departure, after takeoff, we're going to Japper right off the runway and then out to Bobcat. And looks like we picked up a little speed there. We don't want to go too fast. I'm doing nose wheel tiller steering, and for that, you know how some of the side sticks have a twist stick for rudders? I do use rudder pedals for the rudders, but I do have the twist stick, and that's my nose wheel tiller, and it works really pretty good. There are some people, though, that are actually 3D printing some nose wheel tillers, like on Etsy and stuff, and I've seen a few of them that look pretty good. So you can really start adding some cool things to your sim cockpits, and again, they're definitely a little on the entertaining side. We are in Bozeman, Montana. There's some hills around here. Let's go ahead and do terrain radar on for today. just so that we can watch out for some of the hills. And we're coming up to the end of the runway here, runway 12. Not on VATSIM, so we're just going to act like we own the place here. So strobes going on, landing lights are ready to go. Final cabin call, let them know that we're serious about doing that flying thing. And out we go. If we were on VATSIM, we would also be looking around to make sure that nobody is coming into the airport. So nobody's getting ready, to come in and land. You'd usually see the landing lights pretty good even in the daylight, so that's the nice thing about that. I'm also really working on not, taxiing and staying on the center line. Just kind of, I guess you would call that leveling up in the flight sim world. Runway 12, always check the paint on the asphalt to make sure it matches where you want to go. And here's our runway over here. Strobes are already on, saying, hey, this airplane's serious about getting on a runway. I haven't turned on the landing lights. I've merely lowered the landing lights out of the bottom of the airplane. I haven't turned them on. So let's say that we were at an airport where there was a taxiway on both sides of the runway. If you don't, you wait to turn your taxi lights on until you're pointed straight down the runway. So wait until you do that because you don't want to blind somebody on the other side. Plus, that's also a signal to the control tower, hey, this airplane is now serious about doing that flying thing. Okay, looking over here, as we look on down, you can see some of our waypoints, but that's kind of a small. So let's go ahead and we're going to dial this up a little bit. And so there's Japer, there's Bobcat, everything looks like it's pretty good. Shall we depart? Let's go. Okay, throttles, I'm going to move those up basically to a little below half and watch the engine spool up, make sure they're both even and set. We're going to go ahead and hit the elapsed timer. And now throttles up, manual flex, SRS is set, runway is set, auto thrust is blue. That's those three things that are listed down here. All of those basically armed and ready for flying. As the airplane begins to increase speed, I'll use the nose wheel tiller less and less and use rudder pedals to keep us in the center. Looking at the airspeed, there's 80 knots. I think Airbus, they do a 100 knot call out for speed. There's 100 knots. This is one of the things I really wish that Phoenix would do is include airspeed call outs. V1, hands off the throttles, we're flying and rotate. And I just do very, very small, gentle movements with my controls. There's our positive rate of climb, gear going up. So long, Bozeman. And there goes the gear. And our climb looks really pretty good. Keep these centered. Lower the nose a little bit as we do the climb. So lever climb to thrust climb. Lower the nose a little bit more. And flaps are going to go up to flaps 1. We've passed the F button, the indicator. And so here's our flap retraction speeds over here. So there's that over there. Looking pretty good. About 1,000 feet up right now. So let's go ahead and get right over here. Center the flight directors. That looks pretty good. Let's go over here and hit AP1 on the autopilot. And there's AP1. Autopilot's got us. Feet off the rudder pedals. And again, having all of this is so incredibly nice, especially in a big VATSIM event. Holy moly, does that speed things up. It really does. And doing direct twos here with the McDu, that has speeded up life too. WinWing is planning on also doing a radio panel. I think that having the radio panel would be nice too. I don't know if it's the radio and the audio panel together or just the radio panel, but I think that's going to be a nice addition too. Climb's looking good. There's the letter S. Flaps going up. And I just kind of quickly move my speed brake lever. I'm using the Thrustmaster so it doesn't go up and down like the real airplane. I did order, there's a place online where you can go and order a kit to retrofit your Thrustmaster TCA Airbus Captain's Pack stuff for speed brakes and flaps to make them behave and work more like the real ones instead of just a little lever. I did order the one for the speed brakes and the engine start switches. I think that's going to be an awful lot of fun to try. And there's 9,000 feet. Speed's coming on up. Looking pretty good there. There's our turn to Bobcat. We have to be above 9,600 feet at Bobcat. We're already there, so that's good. We're coming up on 10,000 feet. So 10,000 feet, we're going to come over here and do landing lights. The nose light's off, but we're going to hit the switch, and then I usually do a all call. Let the cabin crew know we've just passed 10,000 feet. And out we go. Over here on this page, I'll go to the main Phoenix app. It says that we're airborne, but I'm going to go over here and hit the arrival page for Denver. And there is the METAR for Denver. Already thinking about that. Oh my gosh, look at that. There's blue skies above all this snow. And passing 11,000 feet, and there we go. Next step is going to be hitting the altimeter buttons. Again, it's so fast now that we've actually got some hardware sitting on the desk like this. And again, I think these are really, really nice. One of the things that I did notice is I kind of felt that these little dials here were a little bit, I don't want to use the word flimsy, but they they're not like super duper tough. And so when I first got this, I decided, ooh, these aren't really, really tough. I need to be gentle with this from day one. Since then, we've had some real-world Airbus pilots come in, and they've got the exact same thing sitting on their desk, and they say, nope, that's the way it really feels. So, and these are also, by the way, the other thing I like about it is its actual size. That's the actual size of what's in the real airplane, which I just think is absolutely awesome. So, as we come on up here, again, when you get these, just be gentle with the dials on there and the knobs. And if you do that, I think it'll last a really long time. And I'm, again, enjoying the heck out of this thing. Let's go ahead and I'm going to increase my map range to 40 miles. And we're going to go to airports. We're out of the departure now. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Our speed has come up too. There's 15,000 feet. And all of this is looking good. We do have anti-ice still on. Snow in the area, I think that's probably the smart thing to do. And we've got incredible clouds here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, the new version 2024. We've also got really nice scenery. There's some of the mountains, and we're kind of going sort of near the Yellowstone area. If you've ever flown over some of Yellowstone with the flight sim, it is absolutely spectacular in all of this. And so that's kind of the way that I'm doing some of my flights right now. I've been kind of also trying to stay in this airplane. If you're live streaming and stuff, you want to go and hop around and do different airplanes and stuff. Since the arrival of the WinWing's stuff, I've been mostly sticking with the A319, 20, and 21 just to practice with that and also to be able to use the really cool hardware and stuff. But I've noticed that landing performance is getting a little bit better. Let's go ahead and I'm going to increase the map range out just a little bit. 280 knots. There's 16,000 feet. Let's go ahead and clear ourselves all the way up now to flight level 390. Flight level 390, and we're going to make it managed. So we save some fuel, wear and tear on the engines, and up we go. And if we look down here, it says we have 92 miles to go. 92 miles to go to our top of climb. If we go down to the flight and hit flight plan, it tells us that we have 447 miles to go to Denver. And I think it gives us an estimated time of arrival at about 1746 Zulu. And we're flying real time, so we've got about an hour and 7 minutes to go. If this is your first time joining me over here on YouTube, generally I don't make you sit here and listen to really bad jokes and other things for the entire flight. So as soon as we get past a few more things in the flight, we'll go ahead and hit stop. If you are flying along with me, you should hit stop too, and we'll arrange a time to start in just a second. But right now you see QNH is flashing, So we'll go ahead and it's just off the camera side, so I'm gonna hit the one in front of the captain. Pull it out actually to standard. You'll actually see this one over here. So push it. No, you actually pull it to standard, and then manually you have to click this one to standard as we just passed transition. We'll also, it's smooth outside. I'm going to do another cabin call. Let the flight attendants know that they can get up. It's smooth enough for them to go up and start doing stuff in the galley and get the galley carts ready to go. But we're going to leave the seatbelt on. It does say now that ice is not detected. Ice is not detected. It's 12 degrees, minus 12 degrees Celsius, and we still have clouds to fly through. I'm going to be in safety first mode, and I'm going to just leave it on until we're clear of the clouds. There could possibly be some moisture in there. This is a pretty big system that's coming down into the inland Pacific Northwest. So that looks really pretty good. I think all is right with the world. I will generally leave my pilot's McDu over on performance. If you're doing a longer flight, particularly across some water or something, one thing to do is hit the progress button and then hit the report button. This is an incredibly nice little updated page. It says that you are overhead of the Zork waypoint at 1639 Zulu and your altitude. You're currently heading to Tools, which you're going to get there at 1645 Zulu, and after that you're expecting to be at Boy at 1700 Zulu. And if that sounds a little familiar, that's a position report that you'd have to do if you were flying across the pond. Everything's looking good here in cruise. Every 30 minutes, the real world Airbus pilots say they will go through all of the little ECAM buttons here and just check every system every 30 minutes. Make sure everything is happy. And so they'll do that as well. So we've gone through that. Let's also hit the status page. Nothing wrong there. Clear that, and that's going to leave us in cruise mode. So as we continue the climb, you can see there is our top of climb hockey stick right about there. So we're all good to go there. Generally what we do now is, what I'll do is hit the pause button on the record. If you're flying along with me and matching my button pushes and stuff, you should hit pause too. And then what we'll do is wait until it says that we are over on the performance page. And after we've gone past climb mode, we will go to cruise mode. And when over here the TD, top of descent, is 100 miles, that's when you should hit play again if you're flying with me. That way you don't have to sit here and listen to a lot of silly chit-chat that really doesn't make your flight any better. So how about if we go ahead and hit pause, and we're going to get ready to do a fly. We'll do our top of descent stuff then. Okay, so it's going to get loud, and I'll see 100 miles from top of descent. Welcome back. There we are, 100 miles from top of descent. And thank you for sticking around. I hope you're doing good. 100 miles. I thought I'd move the little camera back just a little bit. It's going to be a little shaky and a little wobbly there. But I wanted to show you. So here we have the throttle quadrants sitting there. These are just on a bunch of rubber bins. And then there is the flight management computer. And as you look up on the desk, there is where I've got the new autopilot, all from WinWing. Really enjoying these. This has really been an excellent addition to the flight deck here. So just everything that I need, and I'm trying to place these in the positions where you would actually find them in a real Airbus cockpit, so that's where you'd find that. And that's a real little brief tour. There's a complete tour video here on YouTube if you'd like to see the rest of all of this crazy stuff. But we are 100 miles from top of descent. So first thing for me to do is we're going to come on over here and go back in. And this is Denver METAR. Let's go and just check a new METAR and see. Okay, winds 110 at 6. Still okay for landing on the 16s, which is probably what's going on. 12 degrees, the altimeter. In fact, now is a really good time. The airplane is going to probably start yelling at us about time to go and put in the arrival data. So arrival data time will hit next phase and next phase. Come on over here. And let's see, the altimeter is 2984. So that goes up here. 2984. You don't have to put the decimal point in. Airplane knows that, which is pretty smart. The temperature is 12 degrees, so just 12. It's going to be minus there, I think, tomorrow. Winds in Denver right now are 110 at 6. 110 at 6 knots. Transition, the airplane is defaulting to 500 feet above, so let's go ahead and do 180, flight level 180 for transition. I usually have been doing config 3 landings in the A319 for a little nicer landing, so choose config 3, which is flaps 3, and then come on up to GPWS and tell GPWS that you're landing with flaps 3. And then finally the barrel for our landing. What is our minimums over on runway 16 left? The minimums are 5,557 feet. So 5,557. 5,500. Is it 3? Yeah, 5,000. 3 of them there. And that goes in the barrel box. Okay, so all of that is nicely set up there. I'm going to go back to the main performance page, and it tells me that we're 77 miles from top of descent. Over here, let's go ahead and get the Flatiron arrival. And good old Flatiron says, come on down here. And at Tichenor, we're going to be at about 13,000 feet. So ATC would call up and say, United 441 cleared to descend via the Flatiron 4 arrival, Denver landing south. And that's what we would get for that. So once that little command comes in from ATC, I would then go over to the autopilot, and as soon as I'm cleared to descend to an altitude or descend via, I'm going to put that cleared altitude in the window here. I'm not going to actually start the descent, but if I'm cleared to descend on the Flatiron 3 arrival for Denver landing south, that's 13,000 feet at Tichenor. So now I know that I'm cleared to descend there. And as we come in here, you can see our top of descent hockey stick coming up there, and that all looks pretty good. Hockey stick by the term. The first time that I heard that is from somebody here. Well, actually has a web page up named Captain Mike Ray. Captain Ray does some really cool books, mostly for real world pilots who have to go and do their first check ride to get a job in a real world airline. And he does the flight simulator check ride manuals over at utem.com, I think, University of Temecula, something like that. It's Captain Mike Ray, and that's the first time I ever heard the term hockey stick. Captain Ray flew for United Airlines for a number of years, flew all the big jets and stuff. My first book from Captain Ray was the 757 manual, which I bought in the 90s because I still thought that was a great, and still think it's a great airplane. But that was my first book. But I also bought Captain Ray's Airbus book too when it was time to start learning Airbus. And so that's the first time that I heard that referred to as the top of descent hockey stick. So that's pretty good. And now we're all pretty good. One of the things that they do have over here is you can use Navigraph charts within the electronic flight bag or the iPad. Sadly, it's not working that well in Flight Sim 2024, but I hope that they get that fixed before too long, because it really is nice to have those charts over there. Until then, I'll just go ahead and have the desktop application ready to go. I can drag it over from the other screen just as easy. But as you can see, we're coming into TOFUU, and then when you do get closer to land, you'll just zoom the map all the way in, and that becomes your ground movement chart, and it's really, really handy. So all of that looks good. And with that, we're making the turn at TOFUU, and we have got 53 miles from top of descent. So one of the things is as we look here, the airplane is telling us 52 miles, and we're estimating that at 1719 Zulu. Right now it is 1713 Zulu. So we've got about 8 minutes or so until top of descent. If you're wondering how the pilots always know to make the announcement that we're about ready to do our descent, and they say, yeah, we got about 10 minutes to top of descent, at least that's how you could figure that out here in the Airbus. So this would be the time that the captain or the first officer gets on and say, hey there from the flight deck, we're about ready to start our descent in, so anybody that has to go use the lavatory or something like that, now's the time before we have to turn on the seatbelt sign. And then they'll of course go and do the weather for Denver. And the weather for Denver and say, yeah, we got a little breeze, it shouldn't be a nice smooth landing, as we make an on-time arrival into Denver. And so that's kind of how it is that the pilots know about those sorts of things. Everything else is looking pretty good for the arrival. We've also looked at the flight plan. The flight plan is all set and ready to go for our descent. So that's pretty good. Really, at this point, the airplane is pretty much set to begin the descent here. So I'll usually leave that again over on the performance page. It's so incredibly handy having the McDu, but also having the autopilot here on your desk like that really does make it a lot nicer for you, especially if you are in a big VATSIM event. We were doing just this past Friday, doing Frankfurt Friday coming on in, and I was able to respond to everything that they needed me to do super duper fast. Then we did a VATSIM event last night into Minneapolis, and I was able to respond so quickly that they kind of like had a gap, and I think they kind of cut me in, not because I'm a live streamer or anything, but because the airplane was right where it's supposed to be. So these things are really, really well designed. And of course they are for the pilots and stuff, but having one on your desk, if that's something that you can afford, I think is definitely well worth the cash. And again, I do like to say a few things about that. I am not sponsored by anybody. If I'm telling you that I think something is really, really cool, it's because I think it's really, really cool. Speaking of that, this is a good time for me to mention that these cold and dark videos are just what's working for me. I really appreciate you watching. This is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is what works again for me. It works in the flight sim world. I try to fly my airplanes as close to real world flying as I can, but the cold and dark videos here are things that I'm really trying to make easy for if you're getting started in flight sim to understand how to do this so you can fly these incredible airplanes too. Spy flights, they're Tuesday through Sunday at 1900 Zulu, and that's over on Twitch TV 757 Spy. I also do a daily pre-flight video over on Patreon. If you like what you're seeing there, I would certainly appreciate any kind of support. This is after layoffs in the real corporate world and stuff, this is how it is that I keep my lights on here, and I'm so incredibly grateful for the secret agents, the special agents, and the double O's over on Patreon, plus people who are subscribing and gifting subs over on Twitch. Thank you for being the jet fuel in the flight plan and helping me to keep the lights on. I never thought that this would be something that I'm doing, but I love absolutely every minute of it. Plus, sort of a little bit of an announcement here. I've been doing the cold and dark videos here on YouTube now for several years. Now that multi-streaming is allowed by YouTube and Twitch, I'll starting to work on setting up multi-streaming, so the live stream that you see on Twitch, you'll also be able to join us here on YouTube and fly along if you'd rather be on YouTube. So that's coming up. I'm actually, that's going to be the big to-do list tomorrow, is setting up OBS Studio to be able to do that sort of thing. So hopefully that works out, and we'll be seeing you there too. But that's all that is. The only other thing is I'll say the things that most YouTube people say. I'm really new to this. I'm pretty small time on YouTube. So if you liked what you saw, please hit like, hit subscribe, all of the other things. If you really liked it, there's also Ko-fi down there, or the other best ways to support is being over on Twitch and joining me on Patreon. And I really appreciate that, and thank you for being here. Again, I never thought that I would be doing something like this, but these airplanes that are coming out, the Phoenix airplanes, We've also got the PMDG airplanes. Anybuilds is about ready to put out, I think it's Anybuilds, is about ready to put out an A350, and that looks like it's going to be fabulous. There's also a group of developers called Bluebird, and they're going to put out a 757. I saw a preview video here on YouTube of that recently, and wow, that was just mind-blowing too, at just how incredible these airplanes are. And you combine that with the scenery engine that we have here. Yeah, I know there's not, well, there's a little bit of scenery to see down there, but you combine that with the scenery engine and the fact that, you know, the snow is where the snow is supposed to be and all of that. It really is just absolutely an amazing time to be doing the World of Flight Sim. And it is almost time to start our descent. Fact is 8 miles from top of descent. So there's 7 miles. I usually wait till I'm a little bit less than 5 miles to go. We can bring the map in a couple of clicks. So there's 10 miles. You can see our hockey stick is coming down to 5 miles there. And there is 5 miles. There is 4. So I will quote Dr. Forrester from the old TV series Mystery Science Theater 3000 and say, TV's Frank, press the button. And so we're going to go ahead and push the altitude button, manage descent, and this should start our descent down into Denver. Yes, if you decide to join us for live streams and stuff, there's all sorts of geeky little media things out there. Everything from Mystery Science Theater to Warehouse 13 to obviously spy stuff, since I also have a couple of spy stories for sale over on YouTube. I'm trying desperately to get my head to a point where I can write mission number 4. But that's about all that. Okay, done with that silly stuff. Our descent is pretty good. We do have descent deviation, and that's that little green dot right there. And that's going to show, are we on the proper descent path? You can see that our speed is increasing a little bit here. If it increases too much, you might want to go over here and do the speed brake lever 1 click. Even though the airplane didn't tell us to do that, we don't want it picking up too much speed. And you can see that we're starting to get a little bit high there. So let's see if it can adjust that. We don't want to be too high. Let's go ahead and put speed brake levers down. And that's kind of stabilizing it there. Maybe we need a little bit more because we don't want to be too high on the arrival. Oh, and another safety tip. Let's come on over here and go from airports to constraints. There are constraints. That way we see what we need to do. Let's bring the map in a little click. That's kind of bunched up. We've also got a speed reduction at 280 knots here at Hippie. There's 35,000 feet. Airplane's doing pretty good. We're at about 260 knots. We'll be above flight level 250, so all that looks good too. Let's see, it says company message over here. So one of the things that the Phoenix airplanes do is about halfway through your flight, you're going to see that there's a company message from United Airline Ops. And that basically says that no ADC is required. ADC is, did you get out of the gate on time? Well, we got out of the gate on time. If we didn't, we would have to file a little report that says, why were you late? And then there's a delay allocation card over here on the electronic flight bag, and that tells you what the delays are that you could use. It's not required, you don't have to do that, but it does kind of pop up and show you a company message. So the only thing you really have to do is you could ignore it, or you could just click it, I read it, return, we're done. You could also fill out the ADC. I don't think anybody reads it from Phoenix or anything like that. It's just something to do. And that tells us that we have arrived on time and all is right with or we departed on time and all is right with the world. Coming up on Hippie, we're going to see it says we need to be at 280 knots here. We are a touch slow. So my guess is as we continue our descent, we're going to the airplane's going to probably want to speed up a little bit. Let's see if that happens as we approach Hippie. Is it added or is it at or below? Let's look at the arrival. At Hippie, It wants us to be at 280 knots. So they want our speed coming in here at 280. And we're 3 miles. Let's see if the airplane does anything to correct it. We're still above transition from Mach to airspeed. So there's Hippie. It doesn't look like it's taking any corrective action. It probably won't do that until, and my guess is ATC would want us there. So what we could do is we could go over and hit the speed Mach button. Let's first of all, we're going to pull it out, and it's already in speed, airspeed. So I'm going to increase this to 280. And there goes our speed up to 280. That way we're where we're supposed to be. I don't know if that's the actual thing to do. I know on VATSIM, if there's a lot of people coming into the airport and there's a speed there, they want you to be there. So that's how I would go about solving it. Our descent is actually still pretty good. The deviation shows that the only thing that is deviant in this cockpit is my sense of humor. So that's pretty good news too. And all of this is looking great. Nothing to worry about here. At 25,000 feet, that's when I usually do my seatbelts, unless the wings are flapping around a lot. You know, there's turbulence. The only reason I picked 25,000 feet out of thin air is that's kind of when I've been a passenger. I feel like that's when they start turning on the seatbelt sign. And that's the only reason why I picked that number and used that for seatbelts. So let's see, we are supposed to be above flight level 230 and below flight level 270 and 280 knots at Folsom. We're going to hit that constraint just fine. And 280 knots now, since I've taken control of my airspeed, I'm responsible from hitting these airspeeds. I've got to make sure that I do that. Now that we are at Folsom, maybe one of the things to do is we could try and go back to managed. I don't know if that'll be the thing to do or not. I'm also over here on Navigraph. I'm monitoring my progress in here too. Sometimes in Flight Simulator, VNav has a little bit of a, hiccup or whatever. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll monitor this here, because sometimes I have to take control from VNav. It gets a little confused. So next altitude is below flight level 250. We're good to go there. Flight level 210. Noticing a couple of bounces coming in, especially over the front range of the Rockies as we're approaching. So let's just go ahead and we're going to go and do seatbelts right now. Seatbelts going on. A little bit higher than I usually do it, but close enough. Next airspeed after Bobco is 270 knots. You can see that the airplane has got a little slowdown here. Let's do a little bit of an experiment. So let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and press the airspeed button in to put it back in managed mode. And let's see if it manages. Okay, see, it dropped me down to 250. We're supposed to be 280 and 270 here. So this is slowing me down to 250. That's way too slow. We're supposed to be at 280, 270 actually, coming at Flatiron. Now maybe the airplane's smarter than I am, and it could be that it knows that 250 is coming up and it's supposed to slow us down there. I don't know, but my guess is that 270 is they want 270 at Flatiron there, so that's why we'll stay there. Maybe we'll go ahead and hit the speed button at Eldo, which is where it's going to put us at 250. Up. The other thing, look at that. We are now a little high. So I'm going to go speed brakes. So speed brakes are out a little bit. That's going to increase our rate of descent a little bit. And let's see if we can't catch up with the descent. It's probably because I was busy pushing buttons and I should have just left things alone. So we're supposed to be below 220 at Flatiron and above flight level 190. We've got 8 miles to go. My guess is we're going to make Flatiron just fine. But you can also see a little mark here. I call this the squiggly. Not the correct term. There's an official term. But the squiggly shows when we're going to re-intercept our proper descent path. And as soon as we re-intercept that and this little green dot is centered again, that's when we're going to be, that's when the squiggly goes away. Again, that's not the official term from our friends at Airbus. 270 at Flatiron, so that looks really good too. Everything else is pretty good. One of the hard parts also about this flight simming stuff on VATSIM is there's two people in a real cockpit, but it's only you in your VATSIM flight simulator cockpit, and it is very, very easy to focus on one little thing, and there's 20 other things you're supposed to keep an eye on. That's one of the hard things to do. So now you can see our deviation is showing up, but we need to start slowing it down to 250. Also, do you remember I pulled out speed brakes and left them out? So one of the rules that the real pilots say is if you've got to use speed brakes on the arrival, always keep your hand, if you possibly can, on the speed brake lever, so you don't forget that you got speed brake handle out. Because sometimes apparently you will forget that you've got that speed brake handle out, and you're coming in with the boards up like that, and you're wondering, my airspeed seem to be off. Something's wrong on this approach. And it's, oh yeah, that speed brake thing. I'm sorry, I forgot that. So, not supposed to do that. Speed's now down to 250, so that's good. We're going to hit this constraint just fine. So I'm going to put the speed brakes away and see how we're doing here. Speed brakes are now down. And let's see if the squiggly moves a lot. If it doesn't, let's just leave it there. See, it's moving again. How about a little more speed brake as we're coming on in? 18,000 feet, come over here. And Denver, refresh the METAR. And still the same thing. So the altimeter in Denver is 2984. So 2984 in Denver. 2984 in Denver. And let's go over here. Press the button in, and 2984 for the pilot, and 2984 for the co-pilot, so press it in, and 2984 over here. That really makes that, anything you don't have to point and click is really nice. Let's bring the map in another click. We're at 250 knots. We are right on our descent path. Let's go ahead and put the speed brakes away. I'm going to go and choose auto brakes low and arm the speed brakes for landing a little bit soon. That's the other thing you'll notice about the way I fly in Flight Sim. I tend to do things a little bit sooner than the real world pilots would. Again, that's because you're one person, and if you're flying in a big old VATSIM event and you're changing frequencies every 10 to 20 miles or something like that, you just don't have time. And so one of the things is I kind of do things a little bit sooner than I have to. The other thing I like to do is listen ahead. If I know there's an airplane ahead of me, say we're cruising into Denver, and I know that American Airlines flight whatever is going into Denver, and I hear them kicked over to another approach frequency, I'll go down and I'll dial that approach frequency in, kind of a little bit of roll the dice and take a gamble on that. But if I'm right, that means that's one less thing that I've got to do, because usually when you're changing frequencies, ATC would like you to do 3 other things too. So again, that's just a little bit of cockpit crazy management stuff in there. Next speed is 210 knots. Again, I've taken control of speed from VNAV, so you got to watch that and make sure that that's good. And we may need the speed brakes again. So let's go to half speed brakes here so that we can stay on our descent path and get our speed to where we're supposed to be at B done. And 210 is going to be our final speed as we make the turn as usual. There is a little thing here, these 2 little gold hash marks. That's the safe, you could safely deploy your flaps at that point. So at this point, if you need a little extra drag, we could throw those out right now. I usually try to wait a little bit longer to do that as we get our speed back. So between 15 and 14, we're good at B done. And that looks pretty good. Usually about now, ATC is going to call and say, United 441, descend to maintain 7,000. So we'll come on over here and we'll do 7,000. They'll also at that point in time say clear for the ILS runway 16 left. So we're going to hit the LS buttons on both sides of the cockpit, and both of those are armed and ready to go. And the real pilots are going to look over there and they're going to see these little pink letters down there, ILTT and a frequency. And they're going to come over and check the ILS and see that it says ILTT at 111.1 and make sure that they're tuned in to the right ILS. And we're looking pretty good. Let's put speed brakes away. If you use the speed brakes after arming them, you have to rearm them. 210 knots at Tichenor. That looks really good. And looking pretty good outside Denver today. The cold front and the weather system that is dropping snow in Montana at this point in the flight hasn't made it into Colorado. So it's still a beautiful day in the neighborhood in Colorado. Denver is a little bit higher. We're not quite at 10,000 feet here, but we're a little bit higher. And as we start turning into the runway, I'm going to go ahead and kick the landing lights on and get the landing light ready to go. I'm also going to hit my 10,000 foot cabin call. Even though we're a little high, Denver is a little bit higher, so I don't mind doing that. And here we are coming in here. We are already in approach mode. I'm going to make sure that we're in approach mode 2. Config 3 is set, so all is right with the world there. Again, the next big thing on my personal to-do list is to start using the checklists a lot more. I haven't been doing very good about that lately over on the spy flight, and I want to start getting better. Oh, our speed's a little high. Uh-oh, better get some speed brakes out. We've started to speed up on our descent here. And there is 11,500 at Jappy. Come on, airplane. We need to be back closer to 210. Not doing much of a change there, is it? Hey, we got localizer now. Okay, while that's going on, why don't we go ahead and let's hit the localizer button. ATC, it's before hitting it, make sure ATC says, you're turned 230 degrees, intercept the localizer. So we'll assume that we've been told to intercept the localizer, and now localizer is up, and we're good there. Now our speed's starting to come down a little bit more, which is nice. At this point, they would probably say United 441 cleared for the ILS runway 16 left. Maintain 180 knots until 5 miles DME. So I'm going to reduce my speed now down to 180 knots. That's usually pretty normal, and we're really close. Let's go ahead and do flaps 1. And let's put the speed brakes away and see if it can handle all of this with flaps and no speed brakes anymore. Speed's coming down like a good airplane. We're 15 miles out. I totally forgot to do range rings. Oh my gosh, this is a cool thing that you can do. You can set up range rings around your runway. Let's do this real fast. Go to flight plan, the 1L button, and do a fix info, KDEN. We are on runway 16 left. And let's put that up there. And just radius, I'm going to go 5 mile range ring. Okay, back to performance. And now you see I've got a 5 mile range ring around the end of the runway. That is really, really cool. And it helps you out when you're trying to, if they tell you 180 knots until 5 miles DME. You could also do an extended center line down the runway. I usually do a 10 mile and a 25 mile range ring. Really, really helpful. We're also cleared for the ILS. So now what we're going to do is I've got localizer and glide slope. So we're going to switch from localizer and we're going to hit the approach button. And there's the approach button. And all of that looks good. And 180 knots, this is also time for flaps 2. Let's go ahead, and I usually sit in the chair and move all around during the flight and stuff. Now's a good time to go ahead and make sure if you've got rudder pedals, you're sitting straight in your chair. And the last thing that we'll do is I'll come in here and I'm going to zoom my map in and focus this around the airplane. Make sure that's in the center because this is going to be my ground chart when we get off the runway. I'll also review the airport and figure out which way we're going to exit the runway about now. This is a perfect time, and if ground control is up when they kick me to tower, I'm going to dial in ground control as well. We'll bring the map in a final click. There comes 5 miles. There's the highway to Greeley. Denver downtown area is over there. They're going to get a bunch of snow by this time tomorrow. And we've got glide slope has now got a little box around it. Glide slope and localizer are green. So now the airplane is in landing mode. We're not tracking waypoints. We're tracking the ILS. That beep you heard was the cabin crew saying the cabin is secured for landing. And here's our great little airplane. Now might be a good time to do wheels. Landing gear is a good time, especially for landing. Here comes the landing gear. Nicely modeled in this airplane. I mean, everything that Phoenix has done with this airplane is just really exciting and cool. And we're coming up. Here comes our 5-mile range ring. Look down here. Make sure that you're in approach mode. Because once we get to 5 miles, our landing speed, we just press another button and that sets us up. Life is good there. Real pilots are going to probably be off the autopilot, perhaps even long before now. I'm no shame at all for a simulator pilot to let the autopilot continue to fly the airplane. We're switching to the tower, setting up ground, setting up our chart to be able to exit the runway and find a parking and probably 3 other things. So no shame in using the autopilot. There's 5 miles. Time for TV's Frank to press another button. We're going to push the speed back to managed, which should set us up for our VAP of about 133 knots. It is. So flaps 3. ECAM checklist is now green. We're all ready to go. And at this point in my world of flying, if all of our frequencies are set and I'm finally done working and I can fly the plane and I can see the runway. If the weather sucks, I'm not going to have a do with the autopilot until I can see the runway. But if I can see the runway, autopilot is off and we get to do airplane things. And now we just get to enjoy. Secret with the Airbus, and at least the way I've got my control sensitivities set up, you really don't want to be moving that stick around. It's very, very small movements that I've found. I've seen a couple of videos where, you know, people are just rocking these things all over the place, and I've, at least for my world, the way my sensitivities are set up, I really try not to move them around much.
Glide slope. Glide slope.
Airplane's always going to yell at me about the glide slope. If it's, and I guess according to all this, I'm a little bit low.
Glide slope.
Hands on the throttles, getting ready to pull them back.
Glide slope.
Oh wow, there's this shadow of an airplane in the scene. There's 2 airplanes in the scenery there. That's funny.
Glide slope. Glide slope.
40. 30.
Oh wow, there's
20,
bison out there.
Retard.
Reverse. Little off to the side here. There was some window. Get in the center. There we go. Back where we belong. Let's grab the next high speed. Reversers, auto brakes. I don't want to slow down too much, but until I see that high speed. And we'll grab the second one. If traffic is there's a lot of traffic behind us, I'm not going to do a nice gentle slowdown. I'm going to get off the runway as quick as I can because there's more airplanes coming. Strobes off, landing lights are off. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to also, while I'm up here, open the flap, turn off landing config 3. Probably shouldn't do that. We'll just open up the flap as we get ready to come on in and do our next taxi. I also probably do a little bit of cleanup of the cockpit. I'll turn off the LS system. Also, I'm going to turn off terrain radar. If I have weather radar on, I'll turn that off. We'll also turn off predictive wind shear. Apparently, the ground crew doesn't like to have airplanes emitting radio frequencies for all of that stuff, you know, radar and stuff, because I guess they don't want to be like glow in the dark or something. So I do turn all of those sorts of things off. Probably don't need to turn off the LS until a little bit later on. We do have a little bit of a taxi into the Denver area right now. Oh, how embarrassing. I also need to put my speed brakes down and pull my flaps up. All the other airplanes are laughing at us. And here we are. Also ought to get on the center line here. Coming into the terminal, I'm going to hit start on the APU button. We'll get Bravo November into the gate. And not a bad flight. Really nice one. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying what WinWing has put together. The controls for my airplane have just become better and better and better. So I'm now able to concentrate on a little more flying, especially in a VATSIM event, and do a much better job. So super duper excited about those, and we'll probably continue. There is a little bit of a hill here in Denver. In just the default scenery. I've got a payware that levels it all out. I just didn't load it in today. And also another quick reminder, I'm hoping to be able to go and start doing some live streaming here on YouTube soon. Keep an eye out for that. But if you can, join us over on Twitch. Until then, as we come on into the gate, what a fun flight. I have noticed, so they're also doing some construction at DIA. They've extended that concourse. So that's new since I've been here. They're also extending the Charlie concourse. That's the one out here. And it looks like they've done that in this scenery too. So that's pretty interesting. That the default scenery is reflecting the construction out there. Well, that's brand new. And Bravo 21. When in Denver, if you're at this end of the Bravo, head on over to Eatai's. That's usually where I'll go if I'm going to have a breakfast sandwich. It's really pretty good, and I get to look at airplanes, so that's a good time too. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this makes your flight sim a little bit more fun, and I hope that someday you'll join us over on the Spy Flight. Parking brakes on. Do we have an APU? We sure do. Let's turn on the bleed, and engine number 1. Engine number 2, we'll also turn off the squawking machine. Come on up here. We'll do fuel pumps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. As those are going off, the beacon can go off. As that goes off, seatbelts. Ground power just got plugged in. Come on over here, hit deboard the airplane, go to the Phoenix app, go to ground services. We'll toggle the jetway, open up the cargo. And this airplane will automatically deboard everybody too. And is that going to be in the way? And if you watch the cargo doors open, watch them bounce at the end when they come to the top. That's some nice stuff too. Thank you again for coming in. I hope again this was fun. See you over on Twitch. See you here on YouTube again real soon. As always though, please stay healthy, stay safe. We'll see you in the friendly sim skies next time. Cheers.